And I see.
Do we have enough people here?
We do, yeah.
Just Linder. I see Deb. There she is.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. I love this hat. I love that hat and that jacket. They go together.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I was focusing on.
Just Lewis is here and Tarver is not with us.
And
Okay.
that's the whole reason why the house.
Hey, that's a pretty.
12.
Good afternoon, everyone. 12:01 on Monday, March 31st. We're going to call the special gathering of the Kane County Human Services Committee together. Savannah, if you could please call the roll.
Allen,
Present.
sorry, Garcia,
Garcia present.
you, Gripe,
Right here.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Tarver, Linder,
Linder here.
Surges,
Burgess present.
we have Roth.
Roth here.
You have an in-person quorum?
Thank you. And I'm requesting approval to have Ms. Garcia join us remote. Mr. Linder, I think we're all good there.
Yep.
Do we actually have approval of minutes for today? Okay. Ms. Allen,
Request
approval of minutes.
Ask
Mr.
for
Linder,
unanimous consent. of
there we go.
March 12th, 2020.
Is that an all in favor? All in favor?
We need to, we could not hear. Could you repeat that, please, for in the microphone?
I'm sorry, this is Alan, and I requested unanimous consent for the minutes of March 12th, 2025.
We followed that with all opposed. Motion passes. I don't see anybody in the room for public comment, although we have a gathering of officials here, department heads. We are not conducting old business. We are only discussing new business. Section item A, resolution establishing an attrition program for the Kane County Personnel Department. For Kane County personnel. We are going to very much be free flow this afternoon. This is for anybody online or listening for posterity's sake. This is a special meeting that's being conducted and called because the Open Meetings Act prohibits us from having a gathering of any more than 2 to 3 of us individuals that are elected to discuss items. So in order to play within the rules, we established a special meeting of this committee that allows us to discuss a little bit more at length in an open session with more than 2 elected officials. So is everybody okay with that explanation and understanding, Mavis?
Where's the pizza?
The pizza is on its way and will be delivered.
Oh my gosh, I was joking.
Delivery estimate was 12:30, so it should be here soon.
Gosh, we gotta wait.
Mavis, have you
So
ever
take
seen
it
a
out.
joke about pizza?
No, you
Ever?
weren't.
So it was said 12:30, so the goal is to be done by 12:30 then?
12:29, we will be all set. Although we do have a problem with this clock here, just
Oh,
to
that
let you
clock
know.
is off.
It is 12:04. So Blair, you had an extra sheet that I'm going to ask you to put up there if we can. Boy, I don't know that, just this. Okay, so if we are free forming, I'm not a really good free former. Like I would rather kind of set my thoughts in writing and at least come up with something that somebody can respond to rather than trying to generate from scratch. So with the attrition program, establish and evaluate a panel to be able to be accountable to the best interests of the county. I'm suggesting a 4-person panel. That it's just, we're open for conversation here. But my thought process has been the 4-person panel is the HR director, the finance director, the vice chair, a 4th member to be chosen by Madam Chair, as I don't ever want to be accused of, you know, everything is bipartisan and we're working in the best interest of everybody. So, and my thought process on this is that, I mean, to be, I'll try and sugarcoat this, but to be blunt, I don't believe that as elected officials, we should be so far into the weeds that the 24 of us are deep in the minutia of trying to go through a hiring process when we have department heads and professionals that, quite honestly, I want to know from Jamie, has this person been vetted appropriately and taken care of? I want to know from finance, is the money there and where are we paying for this individual? And then I would like a representative or two from our elected body that's going to find a way to streamline this process before it comes to us. I don't see this as being, you know, something that's cumbersome, but we should have a process by which to follow. That's just Cliff pushing something out for conversation's sake, and Mike will come back to it. Let me just read through these a little bit first. Another goal, determine what positions should be included. Well, we have been pitter-patting around this grant-funded, special revenue-funded personnel as if it's not real money. Somehow this is monopoly money, that it didn't come from the taxpayer, that it's not part of the general fund, and who do we think we are to be setting guidelines and rules for that? Yet, when I go out to my constituents, they don't see the difference. I mean, you're 24 members, you were elected to run the county. Dang it, do your job. So how do we grapple with that? How do we come up with best practices for that? We can't be the first people in the world with this question. So let's just get it, let's shine that flashlight into the corner and you know, bring it out onto the table for discussion. Then determine the appropriate next step for resolution. Are we going to the county board? Are we going back to committee with this? What are we trying to do? But folks, make no bones about it. The discussion today is the plan B. Okay, we don't know that we have to do this. We don't know that we don't have to, but I got news for you. If there's a referendum that passes and we have a big truck of money that's backed up and you say, there you go, I'm not thinking that means for us to go and spend it wildly. I think that we should have guidelines in place of what we're going to do. And this is kind of part of that conversation to say, what is the appropriate steps to make that happen? There is also this notion of, as the final item here, I've had a bunch of people come to me and say, Cliff, we need better communication between departments when department head A is interviewing for a new position, but the interviewee, that candidate, already works for the county and nobody told the department head where we might be poaching them from, how that's going. Well, Jamie and I, and you know what, we get along famously, but we go at it just like everybody else. Jamie is reminding me that there is already a policy for this, Cliff. Why are you trying to change something that already exists? Part of that might be just saying, dust it off, get it out there so everybody understands it. If we need to tweak it, let's do a tweak. If it's good enough, let's just make sure everybody understands it. And so I just wanted these 4 points to be on there. And if we can just start into some conversation here. Anita, if I can start with you and kind of point out that when we brought this forth the other day, there were several people that raised their hand and said, hey, I have a question here. And I think that Jamie and I could categorize the concerns into just a few buckets that were there. But Anita, I think yours were really poignant and spot on. If you remember what those were, if not, we'll refresh. But
Okay. So that was last week. So, and this is a new week. Okay. First of all, I want to echo your sentiment that after this referendum passes tomorrow, that does not mean that we are just going to take that money and throw it to the wind and, you know, not be diligent in our spending practices. And I think that what I have noticed is we do need to put a little more control in. So I'm, regardless of what happens tomorrow, I'm all for this policy in some way, shape or form. So I love the fact we're doing this. The first thing that I didn't like, or that I, not that I didn't like, but that fourth member should be the, excuse me, the chair of that committee. So if,
Stop there. Jamie, does the fourth member in your mind need to be a standing member or can be a floater?
I think you're better to have a consistent group of people that is the same for each review, simply because you want to hold them accountable. I think your department heads and your committee chairs are best suited to tell you what's in the best interests of their department. I think you're looking at this group to help with what's in the best interests of the county. So you'd want a consistent group so that you can have accountability to your goals. So you as a board can provide goals to whoever that group of people is, and then you can hold them accountable. Why did you make this decision? I think that that group would be best served to get feedback from both the committee chairs and the department heads and the staff involved when making their decision, but that you'd want a consistent group of people so that you can hold them accountable.
Okay, so this is what I heard coming out of last week. Anita right away was a immediate divergence where I heard one group of people saying, you absolutely need to include the department head in this process. And out of the other ear, I heard specifically, we don't want the department head in that process. We can't advocate. It's not a popularity contest. We are looking for a tried and true process to hold these four people accountable for their actions as it's moving forward. I'm certainly not advocating either way. I don't have any depth of knowledge to say, I've done this for 75 years and this way works better than that way. I don't have that knowledge. So let's just have a conversation. And Madam Chair, I'll let Anita finish, and then Mr. Roth had his hand up, and then we'll come to Madam Chair and work our way around.
yeah, so I'm going to go back with what I said. I hear you, but I don't agree with you. I think the department head is going to have those conversations with, with the chair of that committee. And then I think it's only fair that the chair of that committee be part of this four-person decision. Now, along with that, in the resolution, we're talking about there being this evaluation committee.
Is the evaluation committee, Jamie, in your opinion, the same as the four-person panel?
Yes, that's.
Is that the same
Yes.
tomato? Okay.
Okay. And then my other thing about this was, I would love to see the grading scale, or what this evaluation committee is going to use. You know, like, we can't just, there's got to be some justification. There's got to be something that the evaluation committee is going to use to evaluate. So that's the other thing that I was like, until I see what's our criteria for evaluation by this committee or by anyone, I wouldn't support this.
I agree.
I'm not at what the word is stop. So at the point in time where it feels like I'm dumping the truck on you, just say stop, because that's not my goal. You are not the bad guy. You are just my source of reference here, because you have an entire department that you're kind of speaking for. So those are the rules of engagement here.
Well, and this isn't pick on Jamie.
No,
This
that's
is-
what I'm
This is
saying.
an open discussion.
This is an open.
Yes.
So if we were looking for this four-person panel to have a checklist that is consistent, do we need to create that, or does that exist already? Or is there a best practices model?
You would have to create it. It's whatever you want it to be.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Roth.
Okay, Roth here. In a way, I agree with Jamie, but part of the process should be going through the committee first. And they should have the argument and approved at the committee level. So all it's doing is being reviewed by this other committee. So we're not bypassing them. but then it gets a consistency. And in a way, I think part of the committee need to be people from the finance committee, because the reason we're doing this is trying to control expenses. And that is really the purview of the finance department. And so I think one or two people from whatever the size of it is should be the finance, because then there's a consistency. Because I'm afraid it will get subjective sometime because different chairs, treat their departments differently. And we need to have a consistency, otherwise it's going to fail. So part of the process should go through committee first.
Well-
And then the other part that Anita brought up, we need to come up with is, it can't be subjective. We got to have measurements. Like, I'll throw out examples. Is this a required position? Or is it's something we can get by without? That should be on the thing. And I'm going to leave off Grant. That's a whole nother discussion. So I don't want to cloudy it right now at this point. So we'll come back to that. I would recommend. So we need to determine what are we going to make the decision? Because right now, we had a resolution passed in 2017. I don't think we're following it all, because I'm not aware of anybody saying, oh, we can't hire because we have a hiring freeze.
I think by and large, it's been ignored, Bill.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. And that's why we got to build something that has some
Teeth.
I don't want teeth, but at least gum line. Because right now there's nothing. And I think consistency is the most important thing.
My attempt to add this, and this is just Cliff, this doesn't make this right or wrong. This is just me. Adding the HR director and the finance director gives that true up, if you will.
Right.
Do we really need it, and can we afford it?
Right.
Because and the answer might be, how can we not afford it? Yeah, I get that. But to me, those two are the clearinghouse, not to weigh in on who it should be or shouldn't be.
Right.
But is there the capacity there to even consider it or not?
Right.
And then again, a member of the board, in this case, I'm saying the vice chair. I've been here enough that there's been lots of vice chairs, and everybody before you was equally qualified and yay. It's just, it's you, but in 4 years, it'll be somebody else, and
Right. Life goes on.
life goes on. And then Madam Chair, here, she shouldn't be handcuffed on all this either. Appoint somebody that you'd like on. So anyhow, Kareem,
Okay, thank you.
Bill, that was,
But no, just one follow-up. And the part of that process, the committee should not be rubber stamping it. They need to have a valid discussion. And that's why I think we need to identify what are those discussion points. And not just, oh, here's the form, it's filled out. All right, send it to the next.
agreed. Green?
Thank you. And thank you, Anita and Bill, for your recommendations. Very thoughtful, both. When we met last, I did speak briefly on this. I had a conversation with our department heads, as I usually do from time to time. And they were very concerned about giving two of their fellow department heads this kind of authority over what they decide that they need for their departments. I don't want to feel that neither the chair or the department head of finance nor the department head of human services has this authority about hiring policies in regards to all of our other departments. It's a huge responsibility that really belongs to the board. It's the board who is ultimately the deciders of the funding. We can ask them for their recommendation. We can ask them for data, which is what we ask all of our other department heads to provide for us so that good decisions can be made by the board. But I think it's a misstep for these two individuals to have that kind of oversight, that extreme oversight of who's going to be hired or not.
If
If-
I may,
Yes.
it is not my intention in any way, shape, or form to empower these two individuals over any other department head. It is absolutely my intent to say the board, all 24 members, should be relying on their professionalism and the criteria that we've given them to go through that clearinghouse step of saying, to Bill's point, here's 20 items that this body, that this board has said, these are the criteria by which we will make a decision. I am empowering finance and HR to simply go through those criteria and report to us.
But they should not be standing members, voting members of the committee. Because that's the authority you're giving them, rather than just being recommendation
members.
advisory. I'm
Um,
opposed to them being voting members. Because they
okay,
are staff.
I,
They're
yeah.
staff, they're staff. All in favor, aye? To move forward with whether or not you're going to hire somebody or not? They should not have that authority.
I don't know that in my mind I was asking them for that authority.
But
What
that's
I
what
was
it's
asking them was to
perceived.
give me the report of saying,
They can do
does
that.
it meet this criteria and bring it forward?
They can bring that forward to the standing or this committee, whatever
Bill?
advisory committee.
Here's how I think we can resolve this. They should be the subject matter experts, you know, the finance being the finance, the HR being and they need to help say, okay, in reviewing it, here's some concerns from the finance point of view or the HR. And that's going back. That's why I think some of the members of that board should be on the finance committee, because this falls under budget, you know.
I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Michelle, I do. see
So
your
that's
hand.
how I would recommend we address that, Kareem.
Yeah, I'm think we're all saying,
Yes, if I may interrupt, yes and yes, but it's the people who are actually sitting on the committee. So you have HR director, finance director.
Okay.
You're putting those as either recommendation or voting members of this committee, the vice chair of the board and whoever I so choose to sit on that board. Would have no issue if the chair of finance sat on that committee and the chair of human services sat on that committee. And get rid of HR director and finance director. HR director and finance director are the staff members supporting the goals of this committee.
oh, so you're making so you're saying for subject matter, you're more comfortable not being an employee at the director level, but you would rather it be an elected official
That's exactly.
at the
correct.
committee level.
And that's exactly what I just said.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I still want to use finance and HR for, you know, getting in the weeds. It shouldn't be the board members getting in the weeds. I'm looking for the two directors to give us information. And in addition to the committee of the person, and that's what I'm saying, that should be in their committee. They approve that. And that's part of the process. So
yeah,
we're not excluding them at all. They're putting together the proposal, and hopefully that committee
Yeah.
looked at the same factors. So it's not a one-off every time.
Make
And
recommendations.
it's going to
I'll
evolve.
come right to you. Yeah, and Bill and Kareen, I'll respectfully disagree. I'm
Okay,
just
that's
saying that
fine.
if I had a software issue, I wouldn't be going to the chairman of the software committee.
Right.
I would be calling Roger and saying, hey,
But that's a
who's
different.
your individual that you would point me to on that? Because that's your professional subject matter.
Right.
If I had a question with the health department, I wouldn't call Strathman. I'd call Michael Isaacson and say, hey, what's your take on this? Where do you want to go
But
with
that would be addressed by going through the subcommittee first with the approval.
if
So
you-
let me go to Ms. Gums, who's had her hand up, and then Mavis, I see you.
I
Michelle?
will let whoever's on the committee go first. I got 2 cents as always.
They did already.
Yeah, they're all good. That's why we called you.
You've had Juby's hand up
Juby,
forever.
Leslie said.
Sorry. Is your hand up? Okay.
And you told-
Leslie's going to go before you, Michelle.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
did tell me 30 minutes ago that I should wait a minute.
Oh,
We'll go ahead. Then Leslie and then Michelle.
All right. A problem that I kind of see globally with the way we work is that we don't ask our committees to do enough of the work. And if this committee decided we needed one more staff person in human services, I would expect us to work it out at this committee. I would expect that there be some standards. I would be expected we have to produce some sort of product that comes through. But I would think that the heavy lifting on determining that we need this, that it's justified at this point in time, should should really be done by the committee. Now, we need a lot of information from finance. You know, where's this money coming from? What's it going to do? You know, what do we have to do to make it work? We need a lot from Jamie in terms of resource person, but the heavy lifting on this should be done by the committee. And I'm afraid that I shouldn't say this, but I think there are some of our committees that are run by the department head rather than the committee. And I think we're to the point where we need to, if we're going to be on a committee, we need to do the work. If it means we have to come in twice next week to do that work because another meeting's coming up and we have to get it done. But I think the committee should be doing the heavy lifting on this. Then if there needs to be somebody who looks at, make sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, that's fine. But the committee should be doing the heavy lifting.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a fine idea.
And I give Ms.
I
Juby a lot of
appreciate your
credit for
opinion,
that.
Ms. Juby.
Mike and I were kind of talking about that earlier. I would like to agree with Madam Chair that having two staff members with the appearance of oversight of other staff members is not a look we want to have, and it's not good for morale. So I definitely agree that they should not be those positions. However, since we knew this meeting was going to be called, I did what I always do. I went back to our code and I read what we're supposed to be doing, who's supposed to be doing it, when and how. Just because we choose not to follow our code doesn't mean it's not written here. So if you go to 2-48 standing committees under G miscellaneous, and if you skip 1 and go to 2, it says each standing committee of the county board shall examine the proposed annual budget of the office, departments or functions coming under its jurisdiction, and shall submit all said budgets with recommendations to the executive committee at least 60 days before the meeting, blah, blah, blah. And then 3, each standing committee of the county board shall exercise extreme diligence in supervising expenditures of the office, departments, or functions under their jurisdiction, which basically tells me every standing committee has the duty by our ordinance to judge every expenditure. A position created through attrition becomes an expenditure. Our county code says it needs to go to that committee, and then it follows from that committee to the executive. It's great. I'm thrilled we did this because we're ignoring it, but we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel. We should actually be following what we're supposed to be doing anyway. So
Understood? No, actually, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Ms. Gums?
Thank you. I just want to identify that I actually was shockingly in agreement with my colleagues here. We are kind of reinventing the wheel, and I apologize because I didn't tune into the last meeting, but I applaud all of the efforts here. But I will tell you, I have had problems in the last few years or 4 years of my being elected, where we do have staff that is writing and implementing policy. That's not their job. They can recommend it, but we have seen that happen several times, more than several times actually. And it is, in my opinion, not their job. We have committee structures, and I know Ms. Juby has pointed out that we don't follow those structures very well sometimes, but I, for one, am a huge advocate for going back to the committee structure. That's how we govern. That's how we're supposed to govern. I shouldn't say that's how we govern. That's how we're supposed to govern. And when it comes to your nutrition issue, I don't think it should be any different. And I certainly don't want to see staff making decisions that elected officials were elected to do. Mm-hmm. So, but that's kind of like, it should be a given, Cliff, in my opinion, that should be a given. I think there's a broader conversation here that I'm appreciative of. And I hope we can elaborate on it a little bit more, because the topic in and of itself is a good one. I just don't think how we get there is the right. I would not support this in its fashion. So
Appreciate that. Mavis.
Okay, thank you very much. I am speaking last. You got another board member, but okay, okay, I'll go first.
It's the last person before we break for pizza,
Okay,
but
well,
yes.
all right.
No, Greg has
So,
to go next
so,
and then break. for
so
pizza.
it's hard to be the last one, but still put the brakes on the freight train. So I want to say that I believe the hiring freeze is being respected and not ignored by the department heads, because I believe the department heads are self-freezing, if that's such a word, because they are only bringing to us, the department heads are respecting the freeze by not bringing, okay, there is no such word as self-freezing. The department heads are respecting the freeze by not bringing positions up to their standing committees or the executive or finance without already having vetted it carefully within the departments and the committees. So it's not that there's been a hiring freeze since what, 2017, that we've been ignoring. I believe that all of our department heads are carefully vetting every position before they bring it to us. I do not think this panel is needed. I think it will look great, but I don't think it's needed. I don't think it's going to do anything to help us, because for another reason is our directors are our experts. They know how to get the jobs done in their own departments. And when they say we are understaffed and we cannot get the work done, you know what's going to happen in this panel? This panel will have to say yes, because that expert is coming to us saying we cannot get the work done. So I say that this is a panel that will look great, not accomplish anything. And the 5,000-pound elephant sitting in the room is we're not going to touch any of the elected offices. This is micromanaging micromanaging a microcosm compared to the 10,000. Oh, he just gained 1,000 pounds. Elephant sitting right there. See him? So I don't think we need this. Truly, I think it's adding more bureaucracy without, and thank you, Ms. Juby, for digging into the weeds. So I'm done. Thank you.
Judicial public safety.
Miss Allen?
Is Mr. Gray before me?
No, go ahead.
You're on the committee.
Yeah.
So is he.
Okay, Alan, I just wanted to say that we have in fact experienced this in rarely are we being asked to add people. I have difficulty remembering. Most recently, the GIS department said that they let a position retire or resign or whatever because their budget couldn't handle it. Then, after the GIS fees were raised, they said, we have run this department for a long time. We do want to reinstall this position now that we can afford it. So we just had that recently. The other recent one I'm remembering is that the development department lobbied us for, I think, several years, several budget terms, for a 3-man committee to go looking and dealing with the problematic properties in unincorporated Kane County, saying that it was mostly driven by people calling and saying that the house next to me needs painting. I can't sell my house until that house gets painted. Will somebody please come out here and help me deal with this? And we put together at development's recommendation, a 3-person group, and we have monthly reports on how many properties they are reviewing, how many they are taking to adjudication. And I think that their summary was people will generally respond to someone showing up and saying, I have the authority to talk to you about this. We need to talk about this problem.
Correct.
And they say, well, give me a year and I'll get it done. And a year later, we check it off. But it took several years for that 3-person group to get approved by us. And I'm going to guess that we're all going to pay attention for the next year or so to make sure it's worth the money. And we didn't need a committee. We just, it went through the normal processes. that
That was handled,
Ms. Jupi
and that was
Ms.
handled
Witt
very well.
are talking.
John, do you have anything to add?
I think so, hope so. So it's interesting, you know, being newer here and having only outside perspective, but the limited, what I'm hearing, what I've read, that kind of stuff. I see a benefit for a panel, not necessarily the structure of this panel, because we apparently have rules in the code that we're not following at all, or we're kind of sort of following or something like that. So I would think we need somebody, and I don't know who the 4 or 5 or 3 or whatever that need to do it, but to represent the way things are supposed to be structured. And I do believe we have the ability to, at least implicitly, apply that to elected officials. Because, and I see you shaking your head, because
Not
we control the money.
Pardon me?
We
Um,
control the money
yes, but
going
the
to those
money-
departments.
But we can't tell them who. or
No,
who
we
not to
can't.
hire.
No, we
Okay.
can't. I'm not
Budget
suggesting that.
adjustments.
But if we provide money based on what we think the structure should be, well, at any rate, I think we can, the comment I hear is that we have zero impact on electeds. We can't do anything. They're just running around doing what they want. And
they're
at any
doing-
rate, I think it's possible, but back to the ones that aren't elected. I think we need to establish what the purpose is, because if I read this generally, the best interests of the county, we need to define what that is, to Bill's point. We need to have specific goals for this. We need to have an understanding of how this thing, maybe this committee will, or this group will just serve until things get operational. And then once it's operational, they go away and this gets administered by the board. But we clearly don't have the ability to manage the process, and that includes hirings and whatnot. It also doesn't include performance expectations, which we don't have. And that's one of the things we've been working on. So I see this expanding to give people a template. If there's one thing that I think could come out of this well, and that would be a template on how to do the right things to make your department, fill in the blank, work. And then the board then, and so that's what you do, present it to us. And as we go on, we can help you. The board will decide if you're doing what you should, if we have tweaks, if we have whatever. But then there's a template in place, there's a process in place, there's accountability in place, and off we go.
So
I have, may I?
well, I wouldn't be a gentleman if I said no, would I?
Thank you.
Are a gentleman
You are,
and a
you are,
scholar.
you are a gentleman, then we can go get pizza. I appreciate what, John, what you just said. And I am 100% in approval of and agree with you. Everybody's concerns are about the evaluation documentation. That, I think everyone, best practices. And that would be wonderful to have. The only thing that I have, like to talk a little bit further about is that our department heads do I know they do this right now, performance evaluation for their employees, because they get annual raises. There can be an annual raise that they receive, and those evaluations are done. And if it is with such a large, complicated structure of our organization, it's very complex business model. It's government. And government is complex. It's subtle sometimes. That I don't believe that it is the responsibility of neither the committee nor the full board to evaluate what an administrative assistant does, or what somebody who goes out and repairs roads does. Are they putting the blacktop on the appropriate manner? Because they too, although those are union employees, just as a hypothetical example, that is not our job as a board. Our board is to approve finance, to make sure that we are fully operational, to make sure that we maintain the goals and objectives of serving our 515,000 plus constituents. That's our job sitting here. That's, I believe, our job. not to get into the micromanagement of our department heads, telling them how they should operate their departments. Now, whether or not they've achieved objectives, the department heads, is certainly something I believe we should talk about, and that should be the objective
And
of
Madam
both
Chair,
the executive committee and their committee.
if I can just interrupt for a moment. I hate the term micromanagement because everybody in the room gets hair standing up on the back of their neck and sits up a little bit straighter when somebody says that. No place in any of these conversations has anybody used the term micromanagement in any way, shape, or form. And as a matter of fact, I'm recommending a 4-person panel to deliberately keep the electorate away from micromanaging. I think this should be done at their level, brought to us for a decision, not from our level intruding on them. And Michael, I'm hoping that I'm speaking true, that I have never come to you. Roger, that I've never come to you. And Mike Z, I don't think I ever went to Carl, this is not our role as the electorate to do that. That micromanagement is not, I don't want that thrown out there like, ooh, there's some subversive word out there, that there is no intent of doing that. I do want to break and make sure everybody eats because I am a diabetic and I do monitor when I eat and what I eat. Pizza's not on that menu, but we're going to make do today. And I would and Michelle, do you still want to talk or did you not put your hand down?
No, I still want to talk. I will round it out.
Okay,
before you
what I'd like to
slice.
do is I would like to hear from the department heads that came and hear, do you feel we're intruding on you? Do you feel that we're trying to micromanage? Do you feel like, what are your thoughts on this?
Don't ask him
Cliff,
questions.
I would like to talk before they do that.
No, absolutely.
Ask him that.
Why?
You're putting a negative spin
All right,
on
all
it.
right.
No.
Let's get
And
our
then
pizza
I'll
and
let
It
you
has
have your
some input
slice.
from them. That's why
Can
they
I just
came.
leave you
Let's
with
vote
this?
for a recess and get our pizza.
Yeah, let's eat our pizza.
Start with Michelle.
Yes.
Back.
Okay. But I would love to hear and say, hey, how can we best help each
We're
other?
gonna invite our directors for pizza.
Yes.
Well, no, you guys are eating, right? That's why we ordered all this pizza.
That's the only reason they came was for pizza. They didn't come to give
They knew,
opinions.
yeah.
Leaving right after.
Leaving right after.
Yeah.
Let's recess. Can we eat and keep working? So we,
Yes.
yes, okay.
5 minutes.
Take 5 to grab your pizza and then come back in. right, if we can come back to some semblance of order, and as we get started, I want to make sure that the department heads that have come feel welcomed, feel participatory in this. I have asked everybody to come up and sit in the, I don't even know what you call this area, but sit up here, not in an us and them, meaning we're in the seats and you're in the bleachers and sort of thing, to make sure that this is a team and we are just trying to exchange information and go from there. But Roger, I think in the informal conversations while we're grabbing pizza, which was the whole point of this, you were most articulate, and you've kind of become the historian a little bit, you know. Would you share what your thoughts and experiences are?
Sure.
Roger, could you come and join us, please? There's
You know
some
what?
chairs.
This is Roger from IT and Buildings. I would, and unfortunately, in 15 minutes, I'm supposed to be meeting with the civil attorneys about a procurement issue.
At 11 o'clock, I think you're late.
Yep, I am on time. I got to be there. So I can say a few words, and then Charles is here. Charles Lasky knows our routines from IT and buildings. But just a few words. You know, I think that for the positions, when the moratorium was in place, we were asked to do a particular workflow or process, and it did. It involved the committee chair and in the committee bringing in a business case, or, you know, kind of the cost benefit. What does it take if this position's not there? What do you get if you don't fill the position? What happens? And then that workflow led to the committee process, and the positions were basically put on the board as a resolution with the title and the compensation, but it went through committee. And sometime around 2020, there was a kind of a decision that if the committee chair and the department requested it, there was a form that if they accepted the new position being or the position being filled, you could fill the position. And it didn't have to go through all the committee process at that point, because we were kind of in a different mode of operation. But the workflow, I think, was helpful. I will tell you that most of the positions were deemed, you know, necessary. We needed to fill. And then, you know, kind of the trade-offs were the discussion, what happens with that. So I don't mind the workflow. It does take a little bit of extra time. I spoke with Jamie from HR during the break, and we were talking about the workflow potentially going through this group to try to allow some type of other decision to be made to continue and happen faster than a committee process. But that also, you know, implies that there's different, you know, rules or different abilities for these positions to be filled than currently exist. The other thing is, like, when you start to do the attrition and you start to remove people from payroll from a job description, the other problem that we see is you have to take that work and to redistribute it to somebody somehow. And right now, with the current position control and job descriptions and payroll and the constraints on that, redistributing that work, does that become part of the committee structure too? I'm going to take this job, divide it across 3 people, redistribute the work, try to give everybody a little bit of a raise to help them take on that burden. Maybe the county nets $70,000 in a position, but we have to try to make the other people that are taking that work on whole somehow. They're taking.
Roger, your comment to that was, if I may,
Yeah.
that somewhat an unintended byproduct of our own internal equity study, where we tried to put descriptions of everybody's role and task. So what happens if we don't want to fill something and we want to redistribute that, but it doesn't fit in that box anymore? That was never the intent, to try and say,
Yeah.
whoa, you can't do that. So
the flexibility to try and get
Absolutely.
those people on that task and working. I will tell you, it'd be lovely and great if we knew everybody that's going to leave. And then through attrition, we would have had a plan for how we're going to redistribute the work. But when that occurs, many times, you know, if you get a 2-week notice, that's great. Sometimes you don't. So in 2 weeks, we have that burden on us, and we're redistributing the load temporarily. If you say that's going to be permanent, I think, you know, myself, Charles, Kevin, we'd have a lot of internal discussions about how do you distribute that work. And then is there a cost of doing that? Is there some compensation or different consideration? Because now maybe a person who is traditionally in a lower paying job is now doing the work of the person who just left that was being paid more. And that's kind of the dilemma you run into with these jobs is usually the people leaving tend to have more experience. They're going to another job that pays more. And then you're distributing the work across people that maybe were even subordinate to that person at some point.
And
And so-
Michael, I think you were nodding your head in agreement with this, even in the back of the room.
Yes, and this is Michael Isaacson from the Health Department. And I think also it's not so much the internal equity study, but it was the changes in how we can restructure and pay. So it was wrapped together, but it was in that policy that as a department head, I have less flexibility than a department head had 3 years ago. So to Roger's point, if we did need to move people around, I no longer have the authority to do that without coming and going through a board process, which of course, my number one caveat, we all work at the pleasure of the board. You're our bosses. So I'm not trying to be a renegade or a rebel. We work for you. But also you hired me and you pay me. You pay me a lot of money to use my expertise to run the health department in the way that is the best. And I think we get good outcomes. And I can't speak for the specifics of all of my peer department heads, because I think we are all very unique and we're all very different. And then that's the only other thing. I don't think any other department heads can fully understand how each department works. And I think if it becomes a question, if I need to hire a nurse and Mike needs to hire a planner, that we should be able to tell you as elected officials why that's important. And I don't think a third elected official is able to interpret between us and say, yeah, you're right. Mike should hire the planner, but you shouldn't hire the nurse. I think that's really, in my opinion, and we're here for pizza and opinions, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
In my opinion, I'd rather make that case to you as elected officials.
I appreciate that. And nice young lady, and I don't know your name offhand, but from the call center. Yes.
Yes, Michelle Guthrie from CaneCom.
Michelle, thank you.
No problem. So, my concerns, the vacancies we're always trying to fill currently and forward. These vacancies exist for 911 telecommunicators, and we have a number of steps that we take through the process before somebody is hired. It's a typing test, it's a skills test, an interview, background check, psychological exam, physical, and then they're hired. So my current process is that I take that authorization form when we hire somebody, and my department head signs off on that every time we hire. But we are always doing skills testing. We are always hiring for that position. It's essential. We need more people. We have 2 skills testings scheduled for this month already. So at the point I'm bringing the authorization, these vacancies, we're special revenue. These vacancies exist within our budget. At the point where I am bringing the authorization form, they're already hired. But our committee knows that this is something that we're already hiring for.
What's your start to finish?
2 months, probably.
2 months. Wow.
Yeah, 2 months. And then when they're hired, it's 6 to 9 months of training. So our hiring process is, I would say, similar to how deputies, right? There's a lot of testing. There's a psychological component. We can do it much faster than we've been able to do in the past, but it is, such a specific skill set with the multitasking. They have to pass each of those phases before they move on. And we're fortunate if we can end with 2 people who are successful in a testing. And just as that's ending, the other process is beginning. Because the training takes a long time, and we always want to make sure we have people ready.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And and I do want to give a shout out to Jamie and her team here. It wasn't so long ago that the state's attorney's office came to us saying, you don't understand, we can't hire fast enough.
Right.
Meaning not quantity, quality. From the time a candidate knocks on our door, you guys are ridiculous. It takes us too long. That candidate's already working someplace else. And whether that be finding a way to offer health insurance faster or get a decision made, Jamie, your entire team has done wonderfully in expediting that. So I do think there is play between you all, and because you're the call center, I'd see Michelle's hand up, and I think there's affinity there. So before we go on, Michelle?
Actually, it has nothing to do with the other Michelle, but
Okay,
Hey.
well then let's just move on. No,
well, no, you skipped me before. I wanted to talk before all this substance stuff, but you
Please
don't love
do.
me. So, there's that. I love you anyways, just FYI. I love you all. I just want to I have to say this before we get into these really substantive things, because I think there's a course correction happening. And I referenced earlier committee structure. We have to stop going around the committee structure. I'm hearing everybody, by the way, Michael, I did hear you. Pizza and policy, I hear you. But, so everybody's on the same page here. This is my opinion. A lot of times we have entire ideas for procedures or hiring folks, and they're determined damn near, from start to finish before the committee has ever even heard about it. Okay. And that bothers me. There's the committee. So if Michael wants to hire a nurse, the committee, I think at this point knows that. I think that is working fine. I think it's going well in that particular arena. Everybody here is in a different arena. But our directors, they need to know what's expected of them. So in previous administrations, we have had a CEO down kind of structure, and we do not govern that way. We do not govern that way. So we all have to step up and do a course correction. I got a couple more things to say, Cliff. Don't shut me up. I think that when we explain to our department directors, obviously they're the experts. I would never lean on anybody else to say, I need this person or that person who sits on this board, because you don't know. I don't know, but they do. So of course I'm going to lean on them. But they need to know that if they're having a meeting, they should be bringing that forward to the committee. And I don't think that that is clearly communicated. And that's why our committee structure is not as functional as it should be. And it goes down to one final thought, and that is communication is always the failure point, right? We always fail on communication. So somewhere where we have a breakdown in communication. So I think that when we're having this substantive conversation, we need to be extremely expressful on how and what we expect. And not just of our directors, but of ourselves as well. If we want to function properly, we have to course correct. It's kind of like a dance, right? Nobody ever intentionally wants to step on anyone else's foot, but inevitably that's going to happen. Somebody's toe is going to get hurt, but in the end, with practice, that dance will be beautiful and epic. And I look forward to hearing everybody's thoughts, but we have to have clear direction about what it is, how we govern, and how to explain that here. And that's all I got for you.
Michelle, we appreciate you.
Thanks.
Department heads, anybody else? Hang on, Deb. Anybody else?
Going once.
Hello, everybody. Brett Youngstead, King County Animal Control. I can only speak from the animal control side of this. Please understand, we are unique. Like, I could not do your job in environment 911. I wouldn't even know where to start at 911. We'd be done. But I can only speak to our side. And what I was told when I started here is my group was 15 strong. 4 of that is part-timers. 3 of those part-timers turn over literally every summer. It was designed to be a college student weekend job where they can still go to school. They can come to me, but I already have one. He's going to vet school. Another one that might be going home for the summer. Another one's coming back for the summer that would love to work with us to fill a position, but she's only going to be with me for 2.5 to 3 months. So I'm a high turnover business. And when I started, I was told I have to live within my means. Here's your 15 people. You're going to have 15 people until you leave this facility. You're going to have 15 people. I have found ways to maximize our computer system. I have found ways to do things within that limit to ensure that my facility always has the funds available. Pushing back on a department like ours and saying, well, we got to look at attrition. To cut a kennel worker means we have to start paying overtime to other kennel workers to clean up. I can't do anything to change that these animals urinate and defecate every morning and need to be cleaned 365, 7 days a week. You know, we have to be in there on holidays. We have to be in there when the county's closed. We look to the front desk. I have 3 ladies there. One person down means we have to start closing for lunches because right now they're able to cover each other's lunch. I'm able to send someone on vacation and still have 2 employees that could cover everything. Well, being down an employee means one person goes on vacation, that other person, I basically am turning to them saying, you cannot be sick this week. You can't have an emergency and you can't have lunch. I understand saying I can't grow. We can't add people. I do understand. I am part of this county. I enjoy being part of this county and it's a team and I love being part of a team. I do understand some restrictions going forward need to be done, but saying to a department like that says, hey, we can't bring anybody new on board. I 100% get you. But telling me I may have to restructure to reduce people is just going to be difficult. We were talking earlier, these are unique positions, you know, getting someone that has to love an animal. Otherwise, you're not going to clean up poop and pee every single day. Getting someone that enjoys being in the 911 side of it. Otherwise, you're not going to get an average person to sit through that anxiety. I couldn't. I know I couldn't. God bless you. Doing nurses work. It needs to be someone in that field to do these unique positions. That's my 2 cents. But again, I understand we're in this together and I understand being part of a team. And I want to make sure that I am being a team member as much as possible. But part of that is making sure I know that my facility can't handle a reduction in force. And that's my only fear. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Remember, so much of this conversation is Plan B.
Correct.
Okay, this is I specifically made the comment at the board level when requested, we be looking at this or at that? And my comment was at both. That we can't bury our heads in the sand and hope that a referendum is passing and there's, you know, funds available without going through the perfunctory responsibility of saying what might a plan B look like. And if we don't begin with conversations like this, it will be August before and then it's crisis. And I would rather have this dialogue and make sure that everybody's, you know, casually exchanging information. So Jody?
Thank you. Jody Welnick, Director of Environmental and Water Resources. Appreciate the committee asking us to be here today and express our opinions and our departments in regards to this policy. I certainly agree with my other directors that have spoken today. We are a very small department. Since I've been director the last 5 years, I did reorganize the department twice and reduce staff. We are a skeleton crew. We have somebody that leaves and everybody is scrambling until we have somebody back on board. And everyone has a very unique skill set, like many of my other directors' departments do as well. And it's very difficult to find those candidates that can wear multiple hats because that's how we function is you can't have 6 staff members and one person only does one thing. And so everybody is wearing multiple hats in the department and has to have a variety of job skills. And there just is very difficult to find that quality of people out there. I appreciate the comments from Ms. Juby about the committee structure. I know that our committees that we report to know us best and they know our needs best. And I appreciate that discussion around that. I do feel like there's from the 2017 policy, there could be some definite improvements to that where there's more data available, that we're getting reports from HR, that we're getting reports from finance, and that the committee has the whole picture of what they're looking at. And there's that structure in place. But I feel at least for my department that the committee structure works best and best understands my staffing needs as a department head. Thank you.
Jody, thank you so much. Mike, at the opposite end of things, I think you might have one of the larger staffs and you are so unique in that your projects are almost generational projects, for crying out loud. I mean, they are 20 years, 25 years in the making. You are unique in that you and Jody both might be able to go foster an outside consultant to do certain tasks rather than an employee. But at what point is there a return on that? And how do you balance that? And Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot in any way, shape, or form because you're new to the role, but I think you've been with us long enough to have a flavor here. And I thought Tom was online, Tom is online. So, I mean, chime in.
Well, you can look at our office as having two sides of the parking lot. You've got the administrative side, and you've got the maintenance side. In the context of this policy, our maintenance side, let's say it's 33, 34, 35, staff. We have two staff who have told us that they're probably going to retire this summer. We have one who's given an end of the year date as a pretty locked in, and we have 6 others that are eligible to retire. So you could say that's roughly a third-ish, a quarter to a third-ish. In the narrow view, losing 1 or 2 people during snowplow season, for instance, we'll figure it out. If all of those start falling fast, you will see a reduction in serviceability of a road during a snowstorm. To a certain extent, you can't replace, you can't make up for the lack of a person and a piece of equipment that's out there working. Like I said, 1 or 2, we'll get by for sure. If more of those start falling, it'll be noticed. And so I think one of our concerns would be how fast, how navigable would be any changes be with respect to time. Any ways that we can be smart about how to make this move either yay or nay, but quickly so we can figure out what to do is a positive thing. And then looking at the other side of the parking lot, I think we have those same concerns about if we lose staff, we're not able to redistribute work easily because of the pay grades and the staffing levels. It can be done. It's just, it's more steps, and we'll be back before the county board asking for changes. We do our best to keep our committee, especially our committee chairs and our committee, apprised of where we are with staffing. It's been, and Jamie knows, because I whined to her a lot about this, about how hard it is to find engineers right now. We just had one start today. I hope she comes back tomorrow. We were negotiating with one last week who is looking to leave the GSA before the GSA makes him leave. And we got down to where he got another offer that was 25% higher than what we could offer. So that position will remain open, and we'll see where it goes. But I think the process has to be navigable. It has to be, when I say quick, not fast, but it has to be predictable so that we can figure out what to do. And we have to have some flexibility in how to redistribute work. Michael's really hit that one on the head. Because if we lose staff and we aren't going to get them back, we have to redistribute work. And right now it's a little difficult to do that.
If I take anything from this meeting, that message has been delivered loud and clear, that the redistribution we've caused some hurdles that maybe we need to revisit on that. And I do want to make the statement. I recently made Madam Chair aware of a conversation I had with multiple state level representatives from our area. And my comment to them each was, can you tell me or show me or produce any grievances from the community regarding Kane County? Is there something that we're not doing? Is there something that we attempted to do and we failed? Was there something that we're not delivering upon a promise that we made? What is that? Can you have 100 of those, you have 5 of those, you have 1 of those, and nobody came to that table saying, here's the pile, there's your shortcomings. Folks, we do a really, really good job. But I am cautious, and I believe we all are. What happens in the next week here? And where do we go? And part of this is,
Down to 24 hours.
yeah, you know what? I mean, yeah, well, I mean, so this conversation is just a kickoff to some of that. And again, people, if you know me at all, one of my mantras is, don't make it a problem till it's a problem. Well, we're just getting ducks in a row and hearing, but regardless of how anything goes, I'm still hearing a problem that's been brought forward saying the redistribution, and Jamie and I will immediately, begin those conversations saying, oopsie, I think we found a tweak that needs to be produced there. Okay, a couple of hands up, and we don't want to,
Can you-
we're not going to go really.
I've got.
I just wanted-
First, please.
I just wanted to respond to the redistribution thing while we're on that topic. As long as you're not increasing your net grade, so if you're going to eliminate a position in that, then there is flexibility to do that. We haven't had it come up where anyone's brought it, but for example, if you're going to eliminate a position, your net grades aren't going to be going up in that process. Your total net will be going down. That's something you can do. We're talking about when you're increasing your budget, that has to go through board approval. So it's not the same if you're eliminating a position, would
We
not
might
be
need to
something
come
that
up with a
has-
friendly smiley face piece for that
Right,
kind
and-
of explains that a little.
And it might need to be clarified, right? That was our first stab at the policy. So if that's not coming through, or if it's not written properly to just to say that, then we might need to edit it. But that was the intent when it was written, is only if you have a net increase. So if you're going to regrade a position from a 6 to an 8, that's something that requires a process to explain why it needs to go up. But if you have 3 6s and you're going to get rid of one of them and change the other 2 to 7s to make up for it, that's a total of 14 instead of 18. That doesn't. So that's something we might need to tweak in the policy to make that more clear.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah. Anita?
Okay. First of all, I'm sorry, but I do have to leave. I've got to be an appointment at 2:00. First of all, I think it was wonderful that we had this discussion. I'm glad that everybody here had a chance to say something, which I think was super cool. But we've kind of strayed off because the whole idea here was we were going to decide if we were going to establish this position, establishing this attrition program. And that's really what we're here to discuss today.
I'm
And
not
what I
hear-
have-
I'm not hearing the support or consensus to do that.
And what I have heard is that, based on what Leslie said, based on Jody, based on what Michelle said, that the committee structure is where we really have to start on this. And I've been sitting here listening, and maybe as a committee chairperson, maybe I haven't been as diligent as I should be. I used to be on a school board. When you're on the school board, you get drilled in your head that you should manage from the balcony, not get down in the weeds. But it feels like here at the county, because of so many things that go on, the chair people might need to be a little bit more in the weeds within their committee, within their departments, yes. So the full board, no, but the committee structure, absolutely. So I think instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we just need to train ourselves, as committee chairs to actually do a better job. And that is my vote on it. And thank you. I'm going to listen online.
Great day.
Cliff, can I
Uh,
just bounce off of that?
Yes.
I just want to, Anita is so correct on this. I think the committee structure is great. I think we have fabulous chairs. I think though that something I would add to would be that the committee can't just be a chair and a director and then to the county board. These discussions need really to happen in the committee itself amongst other people. So we're talking about attrition here. Everybody's got an idea. So attrition, like, let's ask our directors, hey, 2 years from now, if, whomever is going to retire, do we really need to replace that person? That's a thought and a process and an actionable item that we can ask our individual directors to do. I certainly would not expect them to go from the bottom up always. Sometimes the top down is better, more money, just throwing that out there. But it should be a huge committee conversation, not just a chair, a director, and then to the board.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Want to let her go?
Mike?
Yeah, two things. First one's a little bit lighter note. Now I'll get serious. Mike, on the new hire, I worked for a bank at one time where we solved one problem with new hires by making sure somebody went to lunch with the new hire so that they'd be back in the afternoon. And that actually, that's true. It's true. It was an actual problem that we addressed. I like for everybody to think tonight when you're trying to get to sleep and you're counting sheep, instead count something else. What is it that Kane County does that we don't need to do anymore? And second list, what is it that Kane County does that we do too much of? And I've struggled a little bit with that. And I'm not getting a real big list. And that's going to be a problem for us. But I think we do need to think about that. And if we do find out that there's somebody sitting on the fourth floor up there that's performing some task that we don't even know what it is, there's no product coming out of it, we ought to have that on a list because for plan B. But I think we need to really seriously be thinking about what can we just not do anymore, or what can we do less of? And I don't have an answer, but I think that's something that's facing us.
Appreciate it. John, and then we're pushing our deadline here, so self-imposed as it may be. No, that clock's not.
It's still 9:45. We haven't.
We
Time
don't
is-
do.
What in charge of clocks?
Yeah.
Charles Lasky, he's already looked at it, got it on the list. I saw him write it down.
Real quickly, I'm just very quickly going to agree with Michelle that, you know, my experience on committees has been the chair brings the resolutions to the committee and says, we're going to vote. And then they move. And so I would love to have chair input and conversations. But to Mike's point, which I agree with completely, you know, having been laid off 3 times in my career, I had this discussion as a family. Is there anybody in the family we don't want to feed? No, they all are amazing people. Is there anybody that doesn't want to have any television at all? No, but we did have those conversations. So I think what hopefully the committee structure will facilitate, because if the money doesn't appear and or if additional mandates come through that we have to pay for, we may be revisiting this again and again and again. So we need to get better at saying we've got to cut 2%, 5%, 10%. Committee chair, department head, give us your ideas. None of us like them, but we're going to have to do something. So, because if the money ain't there, it ain't there, and your people are going to want to get paid. So I just think we need to get better at that. We need to figure if the procedures that are in the code are clearly understood, and then just make that work.
Thanks, John. And Colleen, did you? Colleen?
Michelle.
Michelle.
It's
Michelle.
close.
I'm-
It's close.
It's not even in the ballpark. Michelle.
It's okay. My comment was more about the redistribution of work, right? It's just in the area of 911 and probably some of our very specialty departments, an awareness that we're already trying to hire and we have a number of vacancies. It's already kind of bare bones, and the limitations or the ability to redistribute 911 work kind of doesn't exist, right? As we talk about creative ways to hire, you know, police have other police departments and fire departments have other fire departments who can help mutual aid. You have teachers who have substitutes, you have contract work. It doesn't really exist in 911. So I just wanted to make that point because I know that we have.
Don't answer, we fail. It's just that's we get
Correct,
that.
correct. In a field that's very already overloaded with volume of work and is already struggling as a whole to maintain employees. So I know animal control might be in kind of the same boat in the health department. So I just wanted to make that point that sometimes we cannot redistribute some of the work.
Thank you. Hang on, Mavis. Sonia, you had your hand up? Are you with us?
Yes,
There you go.
yes. Can you hear me?
We
Can you guys
yes.
hear me? Okay, perfect. You know what? I just want to go ahead and say thank you. Thank you again, because we all trying, and you guys have earned my respect in this little time. I know that I am the newest. I love to listen to each of you and learn from each of you. Thank you, Juby, because you go right back to the spot, right? There's nothing that we need to reinvent. Everything is there. We just need to go ahead and focus. I am willing to do, and I am always open to do whatever part I need to do to start making the changes. I don't want to focus on the past because I was not part of that past. I just want to go ahead and make sure that moving forward, we can go ahead and agree. Sometimes we're going to agree and disagree, but it's going to be for the better of the place that we serve, which is the King County. Or what everybody for those departments are saying, yes, it's a struggle. Keeping employees, maintaining employees, it is a struggle. And sometimes I need to hire people that have more knowledge on some things, so I can go ahead and have a prosper business. And that's why I hire them. But it's also my due diligence to make sure that that person is doing the right thing. So I appreciate, Cliff, that you're putting this together. I really love the conversations because, again, we're for one common goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. We appreciate having your input as well. Mavis, final one.
Okay.
Here we go.
So thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody. If asked to serve, no, never mind. I think one thing we have not discussed is job posts and vacancies, which are included in our budget. And they are sort of imaginary employees right now. So before we eliminate a position that we know is important and that we're doing, and that we'd have to redistribute that work, can we eliminate a job posting when we are trying to have attrition for a needed position? I know part of the problem is that, the directors say, I have to have that job post available in case the perfect person walks into my door. And so part of our process could be making sure that there's a process to quickly add that, that vacancy if it's needed. So before we eliminate a current position, let's consider eliminating a imaginary position.
I'm practically jumping up and down to respond to that, Cliff.
But that was the final question.
No, it can't be.
Oh, boy.
Love you, Mavis.
Gummy, quickly.
Okay, so let me give you the reason why that sounds great, but in practicality, it doesn't work. So when you're looking at the 911 center and you're looking at those vacant positions, I can tell you from experience that I had worked 18 hours, sometimes 24 hours in extreme situations. Vacant positions in that arena, not everything is cookie cutter here. We are paying more for overtime and benefits because we can't fill those vacant positions. Not every vacant position is the same, is what I'm getting at. So to make a blanket statement and say, let's get rid of the vacant positions because, well, they're not filled anyways and we have trouble filling them is not in my opinion, not the way to go, because we are paying more in overtime to those dispatchers than if we actually fill the spot. And nobody wants to work 16 hours, but that's what's happening.
No, duly
So,
noted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we did not touch in any way, shape, or form about grant-funded, special revenue-funded staffing. But you know what, I believe there's some of our departments that becomes critical. So many of, well, enough said, but folks, that discussion needs to happen, okay? We cannot keep tap dancing around this. We need to just say, this is our policy, right or wrong. This is our policy. Let's follow it. Let's tweak it as we need to, but let's just come to grips with this once and for all. And we did not discuss the already existing employees transfers between departments and or offices. Both of those will get at another date. But at this time, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Will you wrap us up? What do you think the consensus was?
I think I did not, I stated earlier, I do not believe we have any consensus
I wanted
whatsoever
to-
at this time.
Yeah,
I think,
agree.
but I do believe that we heard one vital piece of information come out about redistribution. So all in all, if this is a 2-hour conversation times 20 people in the room, so this was a full week of work, you know, for one person. I think that was well worth it if we can.
And to keep it in the committee structure. was
Yeah,
part of the
making no
concern,
change
just
right now,
making
but we're
into
gonna
the
revisit what Leslie brought to our attention and say, hey, maybe we can reinforce that just a bit, but we'll
Excellent.
formalize that at the next regular committee.
Excellent.
Okay.
Move we adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I move we adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
We will.
Yep.
Correct. And that was your motion.
Oh, the motion to adjourn.
And Deb just seconded it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?